She lay shivering in the snow, ears limp, tail frozen still, until he pressed a steaming cup of tea into her trembling hands. Her eyes widened as warmth spread through her. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe for more heartwarming sci-fi romance stories like this one. The frontier nights always came cold and quiet, wrapping the settlement in long stretches of silence broken only by drifting wind and the groan of wooden rooftops. Damon Hale had grown used to the solitude. His cabin was small, his meals simple, his evenings uneventful. Most nights he read by lantern glow, letting the world beyond the snowy window fade into a distant blur. But on one winter night, sharp, biting, pure white, something shifted. When Damon opened his door to fetch firewood, he found a shape curled at the edge of his porch. Soft fur, tangled hair, a faint rise and fall of breath. Snowflakes clung to a pair of fox-like ears, drooping weakly over a delicate face. He had no idea that letting her in, warming her hands, offering that first cup of tea would thaw far more than the cold. It would change his quiet life forever. Snow drifted sideways across the porch as Damon crouched beside the small figure huddled against the steps. At first, he thought it might be an animal seeking shelter. Foxes sometimes crept close on colder nights. But when she stirred, lifting her head just enough for him to see the shape of her eyes, he froze. Not an animal, not exactly human. A young woman, trembling violently. Her tail wrapped so tightly around herself it looked like a rope of red gold fur. "Hey," he whispered, brushing snow from her cheek. "Can you hear me?" Her eyelids fluttered. She tried to speak, but only a breathy croak came out. Damon didn't waste another second. He slipped his arms beneath her, she weighed almost nothing, and carried her inside, nudging the door shut behind them with his boot. The warmth of the cabin washed over them both, the slow crackle of the fireplace, the lingering scent of herbal tea that had long since gone cold in his mug. He lowered her gently onto the rug near the hearth. Her ears twitched weakly, as if testing the air. "I'm going to get a blanket," he murmured. She didn't respond, just curled tighter, shaking. Damon wrapped her in his thickest quilt, then hurried to the kitchen for the kettle. His hands moved on instinct. Tea always came first. Tea fixed everything, according to his mother. And if the universe had any sense of humor left, maybe it would work here too. Steam billowed as he poured. When he knelt beside her again, she opened her eyes a little more. Gold, bright even in exhaustion. He held the cup out. "It's warm. Try." She sniffed at it, nose twitching in a strangely adorable way, then brought her hands from beneath the blanket. Her fingers brushed his as she took the cup and instantly trembled harder, not in fear, in relief. Her ears perked, lifting just slightly. A soft sound escaped her, halfway between a breath and a tiny sigh. She took a sip. Damon watched color return to her cheeks, watched her shoulders loosen, watched her tail slowly uncoil. If he didn't know any better, he would have thought she was absorbing warmth straight from the tea into her soul. Then she looked at him with such open gratitude it nearly knocked the air from his lungs. "You gave me warmth," she whispered. Her voice was soft, lilting, musical in a way that reminded him of falling snow. Her ears tilted forward in earnest sincerity. When a fox spirit receives warmth in her lowest moment, it means her spirit has found its missing piece. Damon blinked. "I just gave you tea." But she shook her head slowly, delicately, as though explaining something sacred. "No. You completed my spirit." He sat back on his heels, unsure what to do with a sentence like that. Completed? Spirit? They'd barely met. She didn't even know his name. "Let's, start with something simple." Damon kept his voice gentle. "I'm Damon. What's your name?" She blinked, as though the question itself surprised her. Then she lowered her gaze shyly, ears dipping in a sweet little gesture. Liani. A soft name, almost melodic. Liani, he repeated, and she brightened instantly, as if hearing her name in his voice warmed her even more. Damon, she said quietly, as if trying out the sound. And when she smiled, it was small, hesitant, but impossibly warm. He had the sudden, uncomfortable awareness that his cabin felt different now, less empty, less cold. You're safe here, he said, at least until you're strong enough to travel again. She stared at him with wide, luminous eyes, like he'd just said something extraordinary. Then, I will stay by your hearth, she murmured, until my spirit grows strong. I will not trouble you. Oh, I don't know about that, he said, glancing at the trail of snow she'd melted into his rug. I think trouble already arrived. A tiny laugh escaped her. It was soft and breathy and instantly dear. Damon looked at her, at those ears, at that hopeful, fragile smile, and knew without understanding why that sending her back into the snow wasn't an option. Get some rest, he said, coaxing her toward the pillow he'd set by the fire. We'll sort everything else out later. Liani curled up right where he placed her, tail wrapping neatly around her legs. She looked impossibly small in his oversized quilt. Before drifting into sleep, she whispered one last thing. In my culture, sharing warmth makes two spirits grow together. Damon had absolutely no idea what that meant. But as she dozed off, peaceful and safe at last, he realized something unsettling. For the first time in years, he wasn't alone in his cabin, and he wasn't sure he hated it. The next morning arrived slowly, the kind of dawn that seeped through curtains in pale gold rather than breaking with any real force. Damon woke earlier than usual, his breath fogging faintly in the chilly air. For a moment he forgot he wasn't alone. Then he heard it, a tiny rustle near the fireplace. Liani was sitting up, wrapped in his blanket like a cocoon, ears perked but drooping at the tips as though still waking. Her tail flicked sleepily, swishing across the rug with a soft, rhythmic sound. She noticed him looking and immediately straightened her posture, trying her absolute hardest to appear dignified, which would have worked if she didn't look exactly like a sleepy fox burrito. Good morning, she said with a polite little bow of her head. Her bow made the blanket fall off her shoulders and pool around her waist. Damon fought a smile. Morning. Feeling any better? Much better, she said, though her attempt at grace was ruined when she tried to stand and immediately stepped on the blanket, nearly toppling over in a gentle flail of fur and surprise. He caught her by the elbows. Careful. Her cheeks flushed a soft pink. I will learn how to walk in human blankets, she announced solemnly. You really don't have to. I will, she repeated with unwavering determination, as though blankets were some kind of human right she must master to survive. Damon let the subject go. He headed to the kitchen to put the kettle on. Liani followed closely behind, studying every object like it might contain ancient secrets. When the kettle hissed to life, she gasped and stepped behind him. It breathes steam? She whispered. It's boiling water, he explained gently. It's supposed to do that. She peeked cautiously around his shoulder, ears twitching as if debating whether the kettle was friend or foe. Damon poured the hot water into 2 cups, steeping the tea leaves in the warm swirl of color. Liani leaned over the rising steam, fascinated. It's like a tiny spirit rising, she murmured. Very dramatic. He handed her a cup. Try not to treat it like a deity. She cradled it with reverence anyway, sipping slowly, Her eyes softened in bliss. It was absurdly endearing. After breakfast, a meal Liani watched with the intense curiosity of a student studying a new species. Damon decided she needed clothes warmer than what she'd arrived in. Her outfit was thin, woven in a style he didn't recognize, elegant but far too light for frontier winters. He rummaged through an old chest and found a spare sweater. It was too large even for him, and when he pulled it over her head, the sleeves covered her hands entirely. Her face emerged from the collar with a wide, warm smile. "It smells like you," she said, as though this were the highest compliment possible. He cleared his throat. "Yeah, well, it's clean." "It is still very comforting." The sweater hung so loosely on her that she looked like a tiny fox girl drowning in wool. Her tail poked out from under the hem, wagging delightedly. "Is this human clothing?" she asked. "Technically." She took a step and immediately tripped over her own sleeve, sending her stumbling into the table. Damon caught her again with one hand. "You're a hazard," he said, guiding her upright. "I am trying," she insisted, offended by gravity itself. "Human clothes are long. That's not usually how people describe them." Liani shook out her sleeves with a determined grunt. "I will train my arms. They must grow stronger to carry the sleeves." He sighed. "Sure, let's go with that." The rest of the morning was a parade of cozy disasters. She tried to fold blankets and somehow turned them into a complicated knot. She tried sweeping, but her tail kept knocking dust piles back onto the floor. She tried to help cook and nearly cried when an egg she cracked didn't stay in one piece. "It's meant to do that," Damon reassured her. "But it had such a perfect shell," she lamented. By midday, Damon found himself smiling more than he had in years. There was something incredibly gentle about her presence. Earnest, curious, unfiltered. She approached everything with the same mixture of awe and determination, as though every human task was a puzzle worth solving, and every small success a triumph. When she flopped onto his couch in exhaustion, tail draped over the armrest, she sighed deeply. Humans live very complicated lives. Blankets, clothes, eggs. She placed a hand dramatically over her heart. "I am humbled." Damon couldn't help laughing. "You know, most people don't find daily life this intense." "I am not most people," she said matter-of-factly. "No," he said quietly. "You're definitely not." Liani peeked over the blanket she'd stolen again, her eyes bright with warm contentment. "This morning," she said, "I learned that tea tastes even better when shared." Damon paused, a strange flutter moving through him. "Yeah," he said softly. "Yeah, it does." Her ears lifted happily. She had no idea how much she was already reshaping the cabin, reshaping him, simply by being there. And Damon had no idea how quickly he was becoming the center of her world. The days settled into a gentle rhythm. One Damon didn't fully notice at first. His cabin, once quiet enough to hear every creak of wood, now carried new sounds. Soft humming, light footsteps, the swish of a tail brushing furniture, occasional confused yelps whenever Liani discovered some new human contraption. That morning began with one such yelp. "Damon, the water bowl is spinning." He blinked awake, then sat up. "What?" She poked her head into the bedroom, ears perked high. "The bowl! It spins! It shakes! I think it is fighting the clothes." He sighed. "That's the washing machine." "It is washing by shaking them violently?" "That's pretty much the idea." Her ears folded halfway. "Your human technology is terrifying." She still carefully held the laundry basket like it might bite her. When the machine beeped, she jumped, letting out a tiny squeak before hiding behind Damon. He gently explained how to open it, and her expression shifted instantly from fear to delight. "It's warm," she said, burying her face in the fresh laundry. "It is hugging the clothes." That's one way to see it. "I wish to learn more of these human comforts," she declared, arms full of warm towels. "They are very inspiring." It was impossible not to smile at her enthusiasm. Later that afternoon, Damon suggested they go into town. Liani's eyes widened. "You mean outside? "Yes. With people? Yes. And smells? And shops? And buildings that are not this cabin? That's generally what towns have," he said dryly. She practically vibrated. "I will get my sweater." The walk into town was short, but Liani turned it into an expedition. She paused every few steps, staring at snowdrifts, passing birds, the glint of ice on branches. Simple things Damon had stopped noticing long ago. "Everything sparkles," she whispered, as if the world were performing just for her. The local market sat at the center of town, warm light spilling from its windows. When they stepped inside, the vendors greeted Damon with curious glances, then spotted Liani and softened instantly. She bowed to everyone with the solemn dignity of a diplomat. "Hello, humans," she announced, completely unaware of how funny that sounded. A baker, round-faced and cheerful, leaned over her counter. "Aren't you adorable?" Liani blinked. "I am adequate." The baker laughed and handed her a warm pastry. "Here, darling, try this." Liani held it like a sacred offering. "It is soft. It smells like joy." "Bite it," Damon whispered. She took the smallest bite imaginable. Her eyes widened with reverence. "This is the greatest thing I've ever tasted." He nodded. "Yeah, that's Mrs. Hale's apple bread. It is a divine creation. People usually just call it nice." She ate the rest with tiny, savoring bites, tail gently swaying. Every few minutes she'd look up at Damon with that open, bright smile, like she was proud simply to be by his side. They wandered the stalls together, Damon grabbing supplies, while Liani examined everything with intense curiosity. At one point, she lifted a scarf and rubbed it against her cheek. "It is soft like—" She paused, searching for the word. "Like being cared for." Damon glanced at her, the warmth in her voice settling deep in him. "You can have it if you want." Her ears shot up. "Have? You mean it would be mine?" That's how buying works. She stared at the scarf in awe. Humans just receive things with no conditions. Well, they pay for them. She frowned, thinking, "Oh, that is a condition." He laughed. By the time they stepped out of the market, Liani had wrapped the scarf around her neck so many times she resembled a very cozy fox pillbug. Her tail poked cheerfully from beneath the wool. The air was crisp, the sky blushing with sunset. She walked close beside him, occasionally brushing her shoulder against his arm. Not clingy, just connected, as if her body moved in quiet alignment with his. "Damon?" she asked softly. "Yeah." "Why do humans live apart from one another?" Her gaze stayed on the darkening sky. "Your houses are separate. Your hearts seem separate too." "It's just how we are," he said after a moment. "We value privacy, independence." "Independence," she repeated slowly, tasting the word. "Your way is very lonely." "Sometimes," he admitted. She looked up at him then, really looked. Her eyes were gentle, shining, full of something that made Damon's chest ache unexpectedly. "You do not seem like someone who should be alone." He swallowed. "I get by." "You survive," she corrected softly. "That is different." A quiet fell between them, warm despite the cold air. Liani drew just a little closer, her shoulder brushing his again. "I like that you brought me with you today," she whispered. "I felt seen. "You're easy to look at," he said before he could stop himself. Her ears perked. "You think I am?" "Nope," he cut in too quickly. "Nope, don't make this weird." "I won't," she promised, smiling in a way that made him wish he hadn't said anything and also wish he'd said it louder. When they reached the cabin again, Liani slipped inside first, tail flicking happily. "Damon?" she called softly as he entered. "Yeah?" She held up the scarf with both hands, eyes glowing with gratitude. "Thank you for showing me what it feels like when someone chooses to share their day." He paused, breath caught somewhere between his chest and throat. Snow drifted outside, silent and gentle. Inside, Liani was warm and bright and absolutely sincere. And for the first time in a very long while, Damon felt the edges of loneliness begin to melt. Winter deepened over the next week, laying thick blankets of snow across the settlement. Damon found he didn't mind being snowed in the way he used to, not with Liani fluttering around the cabin like a tiny, enthusiastic whirlwind of warmth. She'd taken to helping with chores in her own very Liani way. She folded laundry with uncanny precision, but only after sniffing every piece to ensure it holds friendliness. She made tea constantly, not because Damon asked for it, but because it delighted her that boiling water could become emotion. But the biggest change arrived quietly. Liani had begun humming. Soft, wandering melodies followed her everywhere. When she set the Karalvumam table, when she dusted shelves, when she sat curled on the rug with a book twice too big for her hands. Damon didn't recognize the tune, but it was gentle, soothing, and somehow felt like it belonged in his cabin all along. One evening, as snow drifted thickly outside, the two of them sat on the small porch bundled in blankets. Damon held a mug of steaming tea. Liani cupped hers with both hands, inhaling the rising warmth as though it were a precious scent. "It smells like calm," she murmured. "You say that about everything. Because everything is calm when I am here." She said it without hesitation, without meaning anything bold, just stating a fact she felt down to her bones. Damon stared out at the snowy trees, unsure how to respond to a sentence that went straight through his guarded walls. A light breeze fluttered her hair, her tail wrapped around her legs, the tip flicking thoughtfully. "Humans have strange hearts," she said quietly. "You hide them." "We don't hide them," Damon said. "We just keep them safe." "Safe from what?" He hesitated. "From being hurt again." Liani looked up at him then, ears tilted in soft concern. "Your heart was hurt? You could say that." She scooted closer until her shoulder brushed his. "Do you still hurt?" "Sometimes." "And now?" she asked gently. Now. Now he felt warmth pressed against his side, small and soft and earnest. Now he felt the subtle weight of someone who didn't want anything from him, except presence. Now he felt the quiet hum of her breath, matching the rhythm of falling snow. "No," he said softly. "Not right now." Liani's tail curled loosely around his ankle without her noticing. A small, instinctive gesture that made Damon's breath catch. She didn't look at him when she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I have never had a place where I could sleep without fear." "You don't need to be afraid here," he murmured. "That is why I sleep deeply," she said. "Because your home feels like safety." She sipped her tea, thinking hard. Her ears swiveled slightly, as if aligning with her thoughts. "Damon?" she asked after a long moment. "Yeah? I want to understand humans better. Your ways, your emotions, the soft places inside you that you protect." He gave her a sideways glance. "That might take a while." "I have time," she said simply, "and a warm place to learn." Damon felt a quiet pull inside him, a tender, vulnerable thread he wasn't used to acknowledging. He looked at her profile, the way the scarf he bought her framed her face, the gentle rise and fall of her breath, the subtle twitch of her ears whenever the wind shifted. Without fully meaning to, he reached out and brushed a bit of snow from her hair. Liani froze, eyes widening just slightly. Her voice came out soft, almost shy. That touch was very gentle. "Sorry," Damon said, pulling back. "Snow, you may do it again," she whispered. He didn't, not yet. But something in him unfolded. Some closed-off space opened just enough to let warmth in. Liani scooted even closer, leaning her weight against his arm, confident and trusting. "Humans and foxfolk show affection differently," she said. "In my culture, leaning like this means comfort." "What does it mean for humans?" she asked. Damon swallowed lightly. "Pretty much the same." Liani's smile was soft and full of quiet joy. Together they watched the snow fall, two spirits slowly aligning, drawn closer not by grand events or danger, but by tea, soft words, shared blankets, and the profound comfort of simply not having to face winter alone. And as she rested her head lightly against his shoulder, Damon realized with startling clarity, he wasn't teaching Liani human ways. She was teaching him how to feel again. The storm rolled in without warning. Thick gray clouds gathered over the settlement, and by late afternoon, Damon was hauling extra firewood inside while Liani hovered near the window, ears pressed flat in worry. The snow came fast, a swirling white curtain that erased the world beyond the porch. "Storm season," Damon said, dusting snow off his coat. "It'll pass by morning." Liani's tail curled tightly around her legs. "It feels different today. Heavier, like the sky is sad." "That's just weather," he said gently. But she didn't relax. Damon thought she might be picking up on his own tension. He'd been strange all day, quieter, distracted, because earlier that morning, he'd received a message he didn't expect. An old ex had returned to the settlement. She'd asked to stop by to catch up. He hadn't planned on anything dramatic. He didn't want anything from her, not anymore. But the moment she knocked on the door, Liani's ears shot up in alarm. "Someone is here," she whispered. "It's fine," he assured her. "Just someone from my past." "From your heart past?" she asked, voice tight. "It's complicated," he said, which was the worst possible answer. Before he could clarify, she slipped silently into the bedroom, pulling the door mostly shut behind her. When Damon answered the door, his ex, Mara, stood there with her usual confident smile, brushing snow from her coat. "Damon?" she said warmly. "Good to see you." "You too," he said, polite but neutral. She stepped inside, looking around the cabin with wistful familiarity. "Looks the same as when I left. You haven't changed a bit." He didn't have much to say to that. She glanced toward the bedroom, noticing the door slightly ajar, a soft flicker of movement behind it. "Didn't know you had company," she said. Damon rubbed the back of his neck. "Just someone who needed help." Mara laughed lightly. "That's very you, always bringing strays inside." "Stray?" He winced at the word, and Liani's ears, pressed against the cracked doorway, drooped sharply. Mara prattled on about her travels, her new job, her new life. Damon nodded when appropriate, but his thoughts tugged toward the closed door where Liani hid. He kept wanting to go check on her. Eventually, Mara sighed. "Well, I'm glad you're doing okay. I worried you'd stay stuck in the past forever." Damon opened his mouth to answer, but she added softly, "Just try not to tie yourself down out of guilt or loneliness. You deserve something real." She left more snow than warmth behind when she stepped back out into the storm. The moment the door shut, he hurried to the bedroom. "Liani?" Silence. He nudged the door open. The room was empty, blanket folded neatly, the sweater he lent her gone from its hook. His stomach dropped. "Liani?" he called louder. No answer. He spotted the window slightly open. She'd slipped out through the snow and wind. Panic hit him hard. He grabbed his coat, barely remembered to close the cabin door behind him, and plunged into the blizzard. The wind sliced across his face. Snow blurred the path, but he scanned the ground until he found them. Small, light footprints leading away from the cabin toward the tree line. Every step he took felt heavier. Every gust of wind stole breath from his lungs. Liani had survived one freezing night, but this storm was worse. "Liani!" he shouted into the white void. Nothing. He followed the tracks deeper into the woods until he reached a large pine tree. Its branches bowed under the weight of snow. Curled beneath it, small and still, sat Liani. Her tail wrapped tightly around her, her ears tucked flat. She hugged her knees, shivering. Damon dropped beside her. "Liani, what are you doing out here? You'll freeze." She didn't look up. "I did not want to be trouble." "You're not. You had someone before me," she whispered. "Someone who belongs more in your world. Someone human. I heard her say I was a stray." Damon's breath caught. "She didn't mean—" "I know," Liani said softly. "She meant someone you pity." He reached for her hands, ice cold, trembling. "Liani, look at me." She lifted her gaze. Her eyes shimmered with tears she fought to hold in. I thought you kept me near because you are lonely, because I am convenient, because no one else stays. That's not true. I heard her say you deserve something real." Her voice cracked. "I thought I was not real enough for a human heart." Damon cupped her cheeks gently, ignoring how cold his fingers were. "You're real. You're... God, Liani, you're the most real thing in my life right now." Her breath hitched, and she tried to pull away, but he held her close. "You listened to me," he said, steady and certain. "I didn't take you in because I pitied you. I didn't let you stay because I was lonely. I let you stay because you made the cabin feel alive again. Because you make every day warmer. Because I care about you." Her eyes widened, tears slipping free. "Then why did you talk with her so long?" she whispered. "Because I didn't know you were hurting," he answered honestly. "And because I didn't realize until right this second how afraid I am of losing you." Liani trembled, not from the cold, but from emotion she didn't know how to contain. Damon pulled her against his chest, wrapping his coat around her small frame. "Come home," he whispered. "Please come home." After a long moment, she pressed her forehead to his chest, her voice small and breaking. "I only left because I love you so much it scared me." He closed his eyes, holding her tighter as snow drifted around them. "Then come back," he murmured. "Let me show you you're not a burden. You're everything I didn't know I was missing." Slowly, Liani nodded, her fingers curling weakly into his coat. And together, he lifted her, carrying her through the storm toward the warm glow of the cabin, toward the place that belonged to both of them now, even if neither had said it aloud until this moment. The cabin door shut behind them with a heavy thud that seemed to seal the storm away. Damon didn't let go of Liani until he'd guided her straight to the fireplace. She sank onto the rug, shivering hard enough that her teeth clicked softly. Snowflakes still clung to her eyelashes. "Stay still," he murmured, already moving. He tossed more logs into the fire, coaxing the flames until they roared with warmth. The room glowed amber, soft and safe. Damon stripped off his soaked coat and draped a thick blanket around her shoulders, rubbing her arms through it to bring heat back into her skin. Liani didn't protest. She didn't speak at all. She simply watched him with wide, trembling eyes, as though unsure she deserved any of this. When her shivering started to ease, Damon brought 2 steaming cups of tea, kneeling beside her. She didn't reach for hers. She leaned closer instead, the blanket slipping to reveal her chilled hands. Damon caught them gently, warming them between his palms. "Liani," he said quietly, "why didn't you tell me you were hurting?" A soft, fragile breath escaped her. "Because I did not want to stain your hospitality with my fears. You think caring about you is a burden?" She lowered her gaze. "You already do so much. You gave me warmth, a place to rest, food, your days, your patience. I worried. If I asked for more, your kindness would break." "My kindness isn't porcelain," he said. "And you're not asking for anything unreasonable. You're scared. Anyone would be." "Not anyone," she whispered. "Not someone meant to be strong. You don't have to be strong with me." Her throat bobbed in a silent swallow. The firelight danced across her cheekbones. Her ears drooped in the softest way, as if a great weight slid off her shoulders. "I heard what she told you," Liani finally said. "That you deserve something real. Something human." "That's not what she meant," Damon said, though he wasn't entirely sure anymore. "It is what I heard." Liani's voice cracked, thin, fragile, trembling. Her words were sharp. They cut where I am already soft. Damon felt something twist painfully in his chest. "Look at me." It took effort, but she lifted her gaze. Tears glimmered along her lashes. "You are real," Damon said, each word steady and certain. "In every way that matters." She blinked, stunned by the conviction in his voice. He lifted a hand, hesitating for a heartbeat before brushing his thumb across her cheek. Her breath caught. She leaned into the touch as though she'd been yearning for it all this time. "Damon." Her voice was a warm, shaking whisper. "Why are you being so gentle?" "Because I care about you. Because seeing you out there in the snow." He swallowed, breath trembling. "I thought I'd lost you." Her expression softened with slow, dawning understanding. "You were afraid?" "Yeah," he admitted. "Terrified." Liani's fingers curled lightly into the blanket. "I did not think a human heart could care for me like that." He moved closer, close enough for her breath to whisper against his collarbone. "Why wouldn't it?" She hesitated, and then spoke the truth she'd been holding back for so long. "Because I love you," she whispered, voice trembling. "And love makes fools of spirits. It makes them leap before they understand the ground beneath them." The silence that followed wasn't cold. It was warm, heavy, full of everything they hadn't said. Damon let out a slow, unsteady exhale. "Liani." She flinched slightly, ears folding in fear of rejection. He caught her chin gently between his fingers. "I'm not going to pretend I know exactly what all of this means yet," he said. "But I can tell you this. I haven't felt anything this real in a long time." Her breath hitched. "Real?" He nodded. "When you smile, the whole cabin feels brighter. When you laugh, I feel like something in me wakes up. When you lean on me, I don't want you to stop." The faintest sound escaped her, a tiny, hopeful whimper. He continued, voice lowering. "You said you didn't feel real enough for a human heart. But you're the first person who's made me feel alive in years." Her ears slowly lifted. Her tail, hidden beneath the blanket, twitched in the smallest, hopeful curl. "Damon," she breathed. He reached up and brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. She shivered, not from cold, but from emotion. "You mattered to me," he whispered. Something inside her melted all at once. Tears spilled over, sliding down her cheeks in quiet, trembling streams. Damon pulled her gently into his arms, and she folded against him like she belonged there. Her forehead pressed to his chest, fingers fisting weakly in his shirt. I thought leaving you would hurt less than staying. It hurt more, he murmured into her hair. For both of us. Her voice shook. I'm sorry. You don't need to apologize for being afraid. She clung to him then, not desperate, not panicked, just fully, vulnerably present, as though letting herself be held was a vow in itself. They stayed like that for a long moment, wrapped in firelight and warmth, the storm outside reduced to a distant whisper. Eventually, when her breathing steadied, Liani pulled back slightly, just enough to look at him properly. Damon, she whispered, cheeks flushed. If you let me stay, I will try very hard not to run from you again. His thumb brushed the remnants of a tear from her cheek. I don't want you to try. Her breath caught again. I want you here, he said. Right here, with me, if that's what you want too. A slow, radiant smile warmed her features, a smile that reached her eyes, soft and bright as the glow of the fire. It is, she whispered. Then, slowly and shyly, she leaned in until her forehead rested against his. They breathed the same warm air, the same quiet relief, the same rising certainty. And when Damon closed his eyes, he felt Liani's hands slip into his, small and warm and steady. There were no dramatic declarations, no sudden kiss, just two spirits quietly meeting in the middle, finally aligned after so many days of circling around something inevitable. Outside, the storm raged on. Inside, they found something stronger. The storm softened into a steady hush, like the world outside had finally caught its breath. Inside the small cabin, the fire crackled low and warm. Shadows danced across the wood-planked walls, gentle and golden, wrapping everything in a glowing cocoon. Liani still held Damon's hands, her fingers curled lightly around his, as if afraid that letting go would undo the fragile peace she'd found. But she didn't hide anymore. Her eyes met his without flinching, soft and shining. Earlier, she said quietly, I thought I was protecting us both by leaving. Damon brushed his thumb over the back of her hand. Running isn't protection. I know that now. Her ears lowered in something like embarrassment. Fear makes strange choices. It does, he agreed. But it doesn't have to make the last one. She leaned into him, small but stronger now, steadier, the tremble gone from her voice. I do not want distance. I do not want space. Not from you. Damon felt something in his chest loosen, something knotted tight for days. Then stay. Her breath shivered, barely audible. I want to. Good. He cupped her cheek, gentle and certain. Because I don't want to go back to mornings without your humming, or dinner without you stealing half my vegetables, or evenings where the cabin feels like just a cabin instead of... He paused, the truth landing softly. Home. Liani swallowed hard. The firelight shimmered in her eyes. You speak of me as though I belong here. You do. Her shoulders lifted with a slow, unsteady inhale. And you speak of yourself as though your company is a gift. Damon, I am the one who found shelter in your life. It wasn't charity, he said. It was the first time I've felt... He caught himself, huffed a soft laugh. Awake, connected. Not just living the days, but sharing them. Her tail slipped free from the blanket without her noticing, curling around her thigh in a small, shy loop. You say these things with a steady voice, she whispered. But I hear your heart too. And what does it say? That you're afraid of losing me. Yeah, he admitted quietly. I am. Liani shifted closer, so close that her hair brushed his shoulder and her warmth pressed softly into him. Then let me ease that fear. She rested her head against his chest. No hesitation, no uncertainty, just a peaceful surrender, like she'd finally stepped onto the ground she'd been too afraid to trust. Damon wrapped his arms around her, slow and deliberate, giving her every chance to pull away. She didn't. In fact, she tucked herself deeper into the embrace, tail curling lightly against his leg, as if claiming a place she'd longed for. I've spent so much time thinking I needed to earn a space beside you, she murmured. You don't, he said. You already have it. She lifted her head just enough to meet his gaze. Her eyes were warm, clear. Damon, may I stay here tonight? He laughed softly, not mocking, not surprised, just relieved. Liani, you're not leaving this cabin again until the snow melts. Her ears perked. Truly? Truly? A small smile tugged at her lips, timid but radiant. Then I will stay, and not because I am lost or scared. She pressed her forehead to his, breath warm against his cheek. But because I choose you. He closed his eyes, letting the weight of those words settle into him like firelight sinking into his skin. And I choose you. The storm outside let out a final gust, as if sighing in resignation before fading completely. Liani curled against him on the rug, blanket draped over both of them. Damon rested an arm around her, letting his fingers slide through her hair, slow and soothing. Her breathing grew soft and even, her tail giving one last contented twitch before settling. They didn't need grand declarations or dramatic gestures. They just needed this. Two souls, finally still, finally safe, finally sure. The fire glowed low. Snow whispered against the windows. And in the smallest cabin tucked deep in the mountains, a human heart and a lonely fox spirit curled together, warm, chosen, and home at last. The next morning arrived slowly, wrapped in the soft, pearly quiet that only comes after a heavy storm. Sunlight filtered through the frost-dusted window, pale gold over the wooden floorboards. Damon cracked an eye open, expecting the usual morning chill and silence. Instead, he felt warmth. Something soft, something breathing. Liani had fallen asleep curled against him, the blanket cocooning them both on the rug beside the dying embers. Her tail lay draped across his leg like a ribbon of copper and cream, rising and falling with each calm breath. For the first time in a long while, Damon woke up smiling. She stirred when the light shifted across her face, blinking up at him with sleepy confusion before remembering where she was. Her ears flicked in embarrassment. I did not mean to trap you here all night. You didn't trap me, he said, brushing a few stray strands of hair from her cheek. Best sleep I've had in ages. Her face warmed with a soft pink flush. Maybe the storm's end brought peaceful dreams. Maybe, he said, but the look he gave her said otherwise. She stretched, slow, graceful, cat-like, before settling beside him again. This time she didn't hesitate. It wasn't accident or fear, it was choice. Is this what humans do after confessions? She asked quietly. Wake up close? Sometimes. And sometimes? She prompted. He chuckled. Sometimes people panic and run for the hills. Liani's eyes widened. You will not do that. Not planning on it. She let out a breath of relief, tail curling around her hip. Good. Because I do not run anymore either. When she stood, Damon noticed the sweater she wore, the one he'd given her days ago, looked enormous on her, the hem nearly brushing her knees. She tugged the sleeves over her hands, peeking out like a shy woodland creature discovering comfort for the very first time. He rose with her, stretching sore muscles from sleeping on the floor. Liani padded to the window and pressed her palms to the cold glass. The world outside glowed white and untouched, the snow sparkling in the early light. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "You're beautiful," he murmured without thinking. Her ears shot straight up. He froze, realizing he'd said it aloud. But instead of scolding himself, he shrugged and walked past her toward the stovetop. "Guess it's too early for subtlety." Liani looked dazed for a moment, dazed and delighted, but she eventually followed him to the kitchen nook. "I would like to assist with breakfast," she announced determinedly. "You can try," he said. "Just don't set anything on fire." "I haven't set anything on fire in days." Not reassuring. She shot him a playful glare, but it softened when he placed a mug in front of her. Steam curled from it, her favorite tea, strong and fragrant. She wrapped both hands around the cup, closing her eyes in contentment. "This tea," she inhaled slowly. "It feels like safety." His chest warmed. Good. As they cooked, as Damon cooked and Liani attempted to chop vegetables while getting distracted by literally everything, he felt the cabin shift. Not physically, but emotionally. The walls didn't feel as heavy. The air didn't feel as hollow. Every small sound, her humming, her footsteps, the soft swish of her tail, wove warmth into the spaces that loneliness once filled. At one point she paused mid-chop, ears perked. "You are smiling, a great deal." "Maybe I'm in a good mood," he said. "Maybe I am the cause." She said it half shy, half proud. "You usually are." Her tail practically wagged. They sat down at the little wooden table. Liani inspected her breakfast carefully. She always did, as though food might magically change every morning and surprise her. "May I ask something?" she said suddenly. "Always." She traced the rim of her mug with a fingertip. "What happens next? Between us?" He leaned back in his chair, considering her gently. "Whatever we decide." She looked relieved and overwhelmed at the same time. "Then, I want many small things. Morning tea, evenings by the fire, helping with chores more successfully one day, learning this world with you beside me. That sounds perfect. And I want to give you things too," she added quickly. "Not gifts, not obligations, but warmth, care, a home that feels full, and laughter." His throat tightened, unexpectedly moved. "Sounds perfect too." She smiled then, bright, earnest, glowing with the kind of joy that didn't know how to hide. "Then we choose these things. Together." Damon reached across the table and took her hand. She let him, her fingers curling around his in quiet certainty. Outside, the world glittered. Inside, the world softened. And as sunlight spilled across their joined hands, Damon felt it fully. This was no longer just his cabin. It was theirs. The days that followed settled into a rhythm so natural, it felt like it had always been waiting for them. The storm melted away, leaving crisp air and bright skies. Snow still blanketed the mountains, but thin paths of earth peeked through, signs of a slow-coming thaw. Damon woke each morning to the sound of soft humming in the kitchen. At first, he thought he was dreaming. But no, Liani truly did hum every morning now, little wandering melodies that drifted like sunlight across the floor. He never asked where the tunes came from. He just let them fill the cabin. Some mornings she made tea. Some mornings she made a mess. But every morning she greeted him with bright eyes and a tail that curled in quiet happiness when he walked into the room. One particular morning, he found her outside sweeping snow off the porch with a branch she'd declared just as good as a human broom. "Looks like someone's ambitious today," he called. She startled, ears flicking up. But then her grin spread wide. I am preparing for the coming season. You taught me the word, spring cleaning. That's not quite what it means. She blinked. I cannot clean the spring. He laughed and took the branch from her hands. You're perfect. Don't ever change. Her cheeks warmed at the praise, and she leaned lightly against him, just enough for the touch to linger. As the weather improved, Liani ventured outside more often. She explored the woods, danced in the snowy clearing, and once returned carrying an armful of pine cones she had found extremely important. She never explained why, and Damon didn't press. He simply helped her line them along the windowsill, where she arranged them into strange but charming patterns. He began carving again, too, something he hadn't done since before his last relationship. Liani sat beside him, watching with fascinated attention as figures emerged from the wood grain. One afternoon, while he was carving a small fox shape, she rested her chin on the edge of the table, observing every stroke with quiet pride. You make beauty from nothing, she said softly. You make beauty from everything, he replied. Her breath caught and her ears drooped shyly, but she didn't hide her smile. By the end of the week, the cabin felt different, fuller, warmer, as though Liani had woven her presence into every corner. The scent of her tea blends, the soft brush of her tail against chairs and table legs, the little hums she let slip when she thought no one was listening. One evening, as they sat by the fire wrapped under the same blanket, Liani traced circles across his forearm with her fingertip. I have been thinking, she said quietly. That's dangerous. She swatted his shoulder with a playful flick of her tail. I want to ask something serious. Go on. She sat up a little straighter, gathering courage. I want to stay here longer. Damon blinked. Liani, you're welcome to stay as long as you want. I know, she said, but I want something beyond and the welcome. I want to choose this as my place, not temporarily, not only because you helped me. She hesitated. I want to build a life here, with you. His chest tightened, softly, warmly, the kind of ache that feels like hope blooming. You mean that? She nodded, ears lowering in earnest sincerity. I do. I want a home where laughter lives, where I do not feel like I must hide my ears or tail, where my heart is not half afraid. When I think of such a place. Her gaze met his. I see this cabin, and you. He took her hands, holding them gently. Then we'll build that life. Together. Her eyes softened, shimmering with relieved warmth. She leaned into him, resting her head on his shoulder, the firelight haloed around her, casting her in shimmering gold. I have more hopes, she admitted after a long moment. Tell me. She hesitated. I want to learn to cook without disasters. That's a noble quest, he teased. And I want to plant flowers when the snow melts. He smiled. We can do that. And, her voice dipped shyly, I want to understand human affection better. Some gestures still confuse me, but I want to learn them, with you guiding me. He brushed his thumb across the back of her hand. We'll take every step you want, as slow as you want, as close as you want. Her tail curled softly against his leg. I want close. Damon kissed the top of her head, gentle, careful. Her breath stilled, then settled into a peaceful, glowing rhythm. They stayed like that for a long while, the room warm around them, the world outside quiet and still. Eventually, Liani spoke again, voice small but radiant. Is it foolish to feel like my life began the day you gave me tea? No, he whispered. It's beautiful. And you? She asked. He thought about it, the loneliness he'd lived with, the hollow quiet of the cabin before she arrived, the way the world felt muted until she stepped into it. My life began again the day you stepped inside, he said. Her eyes shone as she tucked herself closer, tail looping loosely around his waist in a gesture she didn't even seem aware of. Outside, a faint breeze stirred through the trees, carrying the promise of spring. Inside, two hearts settled into something steady, growing, real. They didn't need declarations of forever. They simply needed each day. And as long as they chose each other, warm mornings, shared meals, laughter, pine cones, tea, firelight, gentle touches, forever would come quietly on its own. A life not defined by storms or survival. A life defined by warmth. Together. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe for more gentle, cozy sci-fi romances every day.